All right, here we go. Video 1.2. Today we're just going to be learning about the difference between speed and velocity. They're almost the exact same thing, but not quite. All right, symbol for speed is the lowercase letter s, and the symbol for velocity is the lowercase letter v. So probably the easiest thing to do here would be give you a couple definitions. So take a second, jot these down. Speed, the symbol for speed, like I just said, is a lowercase letter s. You guys all know what speed is. Speed is basically just a measure of how fast an object is traveling. It tells you how fast the object is moving. Velocity, symbol for velocity is a lowercase letter v, is almost the exact same thing. It tells you how fast an object is moving. It tells you the speed, but it also includes the direction. Okay? So, to give a simple example, if we're driving down the street and I say to you, hey, what's your speed? You know, maybe we're on Orchard Lake or something, and you might say, oh, well, our speed is 40 miles per hour. Okay, so that would be your speed. It's telling me how fast you're going, right? That's what the speedometer tells you, how fast you're going. Okay, now, same scenario, but this time instead of me asking you what your speed is, I say, what's your velocity? So in that case, you would have to tell me how fast you're going. So you would look at the speedometer and you'd say, oh, my velocity is 40 miles per hour. But you would also have to tell me the direction. So you might say 40 miles an hour, whatever, south, or whatever way you're going on Orchard Lake. Okay, so they both tell you how fast you're going. The only difference is that the velocity includes the direction. Okay? Now, as was the case with displacement, remember, you can't type the word south into a calculator. So we're going to do the same thing we did with displacement, and we're going to use this sign convention, just like you do in math class. That up is positive, down is negative, right is positive, left is negative. Because south points down, in this class, we're actually going to call this a velocity of negative 40 miles per hour. So as weird as it is, in this class, we can actually have a negative velocity. Again, don't get thrown off by that. That negative sign is just telling you about the direction that you're traveling in. Okay? I should probably also take a quick moment and talk about the units. This will make a little bit more sense once we watch the next video, but for now what I want you to know is that speed and velocity measure how fast you're going. And the most common units that we're going to use will be miles per hour, kilometers per hour, or once we really get into this, we're going to actually measure it in what are called meters per second. Okay? And when we did the lab the other day, you guys saw what a meter was, right? A meter is a measure of length, okay? And so the idea is the faster you go, the more meters you will travel per second, okay? But it's that word per that comes up because of this line here. We're measuring meters per second. So that word per that tells you that it's velocity. So in this class, anytime you see a unit of length per unit time, that's going to be a unit of speed or velocity. Okay? There's tons of things it could be. You know, if you talk about the speed or the velocity of a glacier, you might say, oh, that glacier is moving, you know, 6 inches per year. Okay, because glaciers move really slow, right? So there you've got a unit of length, an inch, per unit of time, year. Okay, so there's a lot of different units you can use to measure speed and velocity. These 3 that I've labeled over here are the ones that we'll use most commonly. Eventually, after we get a little farther into this chapter, we're going to almost exclusively use this guy, meters per second. Okay, so moving on. Notice that because velocity includes direction, if, for example, Al is driving north at 45 miles an hour, and Bob is driving south at 45 miles an hour, then they're driving at the same speed, right? Al's speed. If you said to Al, hey Al, how fast are you driving? He would tell you he's going 45 miles per hour. And if you said the same thing to Bob, how fast are you driving? He would tell you that he was driving at 45 miles per hour. So the speed is the same, right? But the velocities are going to be different, because check it out. If you said to Al, hey Al, what's your velocity? He would tell you, oh, my velocity is 45 miles an hour north, or simply positive 45 miles per hour. Whereas if you asked Bob that same question, he would tell you, my velocity is 45 miles per hour south. And because of that word south, we're going to write it as negative 45 miles per hour. So you'll notice the speeds are the same. They're both 45 miles an hour. The velocities are different because Bob's is negative. Okay? So it's weird. You can have two objects can have the same speed but different velocities. Okay? Now, because of this, because of the fact that the speed does not include direction, but the velocity does, it turns out there are two ways you can change your speed, but three ways to change your velocity. Okay, remember, speed measures how fast you're going. So if you're in your car, think about the ways you can change how fast you're going. There's two things you can do. You can either speed up or slow down, right? Those are the only ways you can change your speed. Speed up or slow down. Sometimes people will say, well, what about stopping? Well, when you stop, imagine stopping. If you're driving and you stop, in order to stop, you first have to slow down. Okay, so that's another example of that. All right. Now, velocity, because velocity includes direction, it turns out there's three ways to change your velocity. Okay, you can speed up or slow down, but also because it includes direction, the third way is you can turn. Okay, any of those three things will be a change in velocity. If you speed up, slow down, or turn. So please, 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 if you haven't already done so, pause this and write that down right now. Okay? Remember, you guys should be writing down everything in these videos. All right? That might be it. Oh, no, one last thing. I always forget about this slide. Okay, so final thing. Throughout this video, I've been using the words speed and velocity. All right? Technically, using those words is a little bit sloppy. Usually, when we use the word speed or the word velocity, we're talking about what's called, and this is a big word, instantaneous speed or instantaneous velocity. Okay, so when you talk about speed or you talk about velocity, the assumption is that you're talking about instantaneous speed or instantaneous velocity. So what does that mean? Well, instantaneous speed and instantaneous velocity refer to the speed or the velocity at one exact moment. All right, so in other words, again, if we're driving down the street and I say to you, what's your speed? And you say, oh, I'm going 40 miles per hour, that's just your speed at that one moment when you looked at your speedometer, okay? And similarly, at that moment, you've got one exact velocity, 40 miles an hour, whatever it was, south, right? Okay, so that's just telling you what you're doing at that moment. You know, 10 seconds later, you could be stopped. You know, maybe a cat ran out in front of your car and you jammed on the brakes to stop, okay? So when we use the word speed and velocity, we're talking about instantaneous speed, instantaneous velocity. We're talking about what's going on right at that one moment. Okay. Tomorrow, in the next video, which may or may not be tomorrow, but the next video, we're going to learn about average velocity, which is actually indicated with a V and a line over it. Okay. So that's where we're headed. But again, that's another video. Okay. Have a good one.